everybody. Welcome to Crossroads Politics here on WTHR+. I'm Dustin Grove.
And I'm Emily Longnecker. President Trump's push to redraw congressional maps to keep control of Congress may be hitting a snag here in Indiana.
This week, a bombshell admission from Senate President Pro Tem Rod Bray saying the push to redistrict is in peril. First reported by Adam Wren at Politico and then confirmed by you, Emily. Bray's press secretary said the votes aren't there for redistricting, and that would confirm what political analysts have been telling us the last few weeks, that the likely reason a special session has not been called yet is because legislative leaders just don't have the support for it.
Governor Mike Braun has said he does not want to call a special session to redraw the maps until both the Senate and House Republican leaders are sure they can actually pass redistricting. Anonymous White House sources told Politico they think the problem is Bray and his leadership team.
But Senator Chris Garton, who is the Senate Majority Floor Leader and part of Bray's leadership team, posted on social media, we'll put it up here, in part, he said, "I fully support redistricting in Indiana and have been in support since day one." Garton went on to say, "In light of recent speculation about where elected officials fall on this issue, I owe it to the voters to make my position public and clear." Indiana Senate leaders are not the only ones facing pressure, since Braun is the one who would actually have to call a special session.
Yeah, Braun wasn't planning on talking with the media Wednesday, but after the news from the Senate broke, I was able to catch up with him during a public event.
To do it and get the mechanics done, we can't, you could push it and then have to scramble. I'm not going to do that. All I can tell you is we're getting close.
Braun also posted a statement on X the same day saying, quote, "I am still having positive conversations with members of the legislature. I am confident the majority of Indiana State House Republicans will support efforts to ensure fair representation for every Hoosier."
Also on Wednesday, one of Braun's most popular predecessors spoke out against redistricting. Former Governor Mitch Daniels doesn't usually wade into partisan politics these days. He likes to stay out of the fray, but he did write an op-ed about this issue in the Washington Post, saying in part, "The attempt, which might not even work, would, I'm convinced, come at the expense of public disgust. Hoosiers, like most Americans, place a high value on fairness and react badly to its naked violation." And Emily, he singled out efforts to redraw the 7th district in particular. He said that's particularly dangerous.
Right. That is the district centered here in Indianapolis, where Congressman Andre Carson was elected with 68% of the vote just over a year ago.
Daniels pointed out there are a lot of Democrats in Carson's district saying no amount of line drawing artistry, his words, line drawing artistry, could make it a Republican seat.
Yeah, and on Thursday, I spoke with Carson about this. He said he thought the Trump administration thought Hoosiers were going to be wowed into submission by White House pressure.
They think that we're some state that just because they send folks from D.C., we're going to be mesmerized and enthralled. No, we're Hoosiers. We stand firmly in our beliefs. It isn't about Democratic beliefs or Republican beliefs. It's about Hoosier attitude and beliefs, and we will not allow Washington, D.C. to bully our state.
Carson also warned Indiana Republicans, saying that once the president gets what he wants, he will, quote, discard them, pointing to former Vice President and Indiana Governor Mike Pence's experience.
Now, on the other side of the issue is Lieutenant Governor Micah Beckwith. He has been an outspoken supporter of redistricting, calling on Braun to call a special session. I sat down with the Lieutenant Governor this week. Lieutenant Governor, you're not giving up. In a statement this week, you said the people of Indiana did not elect a Republican supermajority so our Senate could cower, compromise, or collapse at the very moment courage is required. And then you also wrote that you're calling on your Senate colleagues to find your backbone. What do you believe those against this are cowering to or afraid of?
I think they're afraid of playing hardball. I think for years we've had this idea that if we're just nice, everyone else will be nice. And unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. I think Donald Trump, one of the greatest presidents in our lifetime, in my opinion, he's shown the Republican Party how to fight fire with fire. And I think it takes courage to do that. And listen, all throughout history, you have the Neville Chamberlains or you have the Winston Churchills. And there's a time and a place for both. I think we're in a Winston Churchill moment, and we need the Senate to recognize that. And I do think we actually have the votes. personally, as I've made calls to senators and I've had my ear to the ground. I think we have it, and I think it will come when they have to put their name up on a board with a yay or nay. I think you will see a majority of the Senate actually say, okay, we need to stand with President Trump. And it's the right thing to do because we're getting our voice back in Washington. We've had seats stolen from us through gerrymandering by Illinois, bogus census data from California and New York, and there's no Republican legislators in all of New England. And so we've lost, according to some reports, 17 seats in swing districts or states that are Republican that have gone blue because of the malicious activities by some of these Democrat states. So Indiana, by getting 2 of these state chairs back, these House seats back, will claw back some of the seats that I think we've unfairly lost.
Senator Deary issued a statement. He was among the first to come out publicly against this months ago. He said rationalizing a mid-cycle redistricting by saying Democrats gerrymander too is an empty and irrelevant excuse. Is that not a principled argument with the courage to speak it publicly?
I think he's forgetting that in Washington, the states have a right to have their voices heard, because the way the founders set it up was that there's states' voice through the Senate and through the congressional maps, and then there's the House voice, which is the people's voice. We've lost the Senate being the state's voice with the 17th Amendment. The only way that states have a voice now in Washington is through the district maps. And what I'm saying is the principled stance would be Indiana deserves our full voice being heard in Washington. And when states like Illinois do bad things and steal, they actually water down Indiana's voice in Washington. So the principled stance would be we need our full voice, our fair voice, the one that is totally reserved for Indiana to be heard in Washington. And this is one of the ways to do it.
What about the 40% of Hoosiers who voted Democrat?
Sure. It has nothing to do with the state's makeup. It has everything to do with the state's voice in Washington. So you can make that same argument with New England. Why is it that there's no Republican representatives in New England? Why does Massachusetts have about a 35% Republican electorate and they have no Republican members of Congress? So you can make that argument. What I'm saying is it's all about Indiana's voice in Washington, and this is a way to get it back.
When does it end? At what point does it end? If you're saying, okay, we'll do this now mid-cycle, well, who's to say then under a Democratic administration we flip the script and in another 2 to 4 years we're here all over again?
What this will do, and what I hope it does, it forces the Supreme Court to make rules that everybody plays by across the board. So this is a good step because it's going to force the Supreme Court to get involved. Absolutely. I think that's a good thing. I would be against redistricting if I could trust our states, our fellow states like Illinois and California and New York to all play by the same rules. The problem is they're not. And so it's going to take the Supreme Court to get involved. So for Indiana to do this right now, this is one more step to say, Supreme Court, we need you to tell us the rules that everybody plays by. And at that point, then the issue's solved.
I'm guessing you saw former Governor Daniels' op-ed in the Washington Post urging lawmakers to resist what he called this pressure from Washington. How much of a concern is it to you that someone with his stature, who doesn't typically get involved in partisan politics, to say this is the wrong thing to do?
Well, I have a lot of respect for former Governor Mitch Daniels. He's done a lot for our state. He's absolutely, kind of somebody that we hold up to say, hey, he's done a lot of good things. Let's follow some of his examples. I just think he's forgetting that this isn't about just Indiana. This is about Indiana's voice in Washington. And when he says, hey, we just need to resist this, I would argue and say you're resisting the step that we need to take so that we get our rightful voice back in Washington. Shouldn't Hoosiers, as a state, have their full voice represented? And I would just disagree with him to say this isn't some sort of ploy. This isn't you did it, so we're going to do it. This is we deserve our voice. This is a way to get it back. And again, a lot of respect for Governor Daniels. And actually, even Senator Deary. A lot of respect for Senator Deary. I've talked to members of the House that are against it, and have huge respect for them. They can fight for what they believe. They should fight for what they believe. I'm just doing the same thing as well.
So, just to go back to the Hoosier voice in Washington, 7 of 9 districts are already Republican. Yeah. So isn't that an appropriate voice?
Well, when you actually look at that, we've lost 17 seats according to the studies that have come out that have been stolen from Congress from Republicans. Well, that means our 7 Republicans aren't as strong as they would otherwise be in Washington. So when you have that slim majority, they shouldn't have to be, on that edge of the knife right now. Like, we should have a bigger majority. If it would have been fair, we would have a bigger majority. So that means the way our 7 Republicans have to govern in Washington is different had the game been played fair by everybody. And so that's what I'm saying. It's not fair. They've gerrymandered, they've rigged the system on the other side, and now the 7 Republicans in Indiana can't do everything that we as Hoosiers are trying to send them into Washington to do.
So you believe that there are the votes. The window to hold this special session is closing
Coming up,
quickly.
Yeah.
When do you, and you're not making the decision obviously, but when do you see that happening?
It has to be beginning of November. I think you missed that first week, maybe even into the second week. I think after that, the window's going to be closed. And I know the governor is very much in support of redistricting. He's come out and said it. President Trump is obviously, he's a big ally of President Trump as well. And so I think he's just kind of waiting for that, right moment. And you're going to have to ask him. He's the one that has to make the decision, right? But I've certainly let him know. I said, Governor, I think you need to call the session and call it soon. And so I've given my input, and he can take it and do with it as he pleases.
Lieutenant Governor, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And simmering in the background of this debate is what do Hoosiers actually want?
Right. The latest publicly available polling seems to show only weak support for the redistricting push. A poll by North Star Opinion Research on behalf of Independent Indiana found 53% of registered voters in Indiana don't support the move, and just 34% do.
Among Republican voters, when you narrow down, there is more support with 59% and 25% who oppose. But that's basically flipped when you look at independents. 59% of independents are against and 28% support.
Democrats, as you'd expect, oppose redistricting overwhelmingly, with 85% opposing and just 11% supporting.
There are some time constraints here too. The district maps are going to need to be drawn in time for candidates to file ahead of next year's primary. And once a special session is called, lawmakers will have 30 days to get something done under Indiana law.
Still ahead, could Indiana absorb counties from Illinois? A new commission to do just that met for the first time. The testimony they heard. But first,
it's not a fun thing to need food stamps. Being in poverty and all that, it's not something that, at least not me, that I want to be in.
Right now, we are in the second longest U.S. government shutdown in history, quickly approaching the longest shutdown as well. How that's impacting everyday Hoosiers, it's next right here on Crossroads Politics. Welcome back. We are now officially in the second longest federal government shutdown in U.S. history.
Yeah, in addition to the furloughs for hundreds of thousands of government employees and no paychecks for the ones still forced to work, Lee Waldman reports the shutdown is making it harder for average Americans to buy homes.
More than 1/3 of home buyers across the country turn to federally backed loans in order to make home ownership possible. That's according to a 2024 report by the National Association of Realtors. This shutdown is putting those home buying dreams in jeopardy.
Of course, the government shut down. And so my lender got back in touch with me and she said, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to close until the USDA reopens.
Chase Franklin had everything set for his move from North Dakota to Kansas, including a U.S. Department of Agriculture-backed mortgage to buy a home. Now that plan has come to a screeching halt.
There was a full gamut of emotions. I mean, there was anger, there was frustration. I mean, there was like, why is this happening now?
He's not alone. Anthony Smith, a senior economist with Realtor.com, says homebuyers all over the U.S. are feeling the impact of the shutdown.
It will be a difficult position to be put in as a first-time home buyer because that's going to be really one of the biggest cohorts that are going to be impacted by this.
Before the shutdown, the skyrocketing prices of homes brought the housing industry to a slowdown. But the first government shutdown in nearly 7 years is impacting both rural and urban areas.
The housing market was definitely somewhat frigid, and so this adds more chill to a situation that didn't need any more cooling off altogether.
The longer this shutdown stretches on, Smith says the greater impact it's going to have on the industry as a whole and the more uncertainty it will breed. As for Franklin, he's got a clear message to the lawmakers in D.C.
Recognize that the decisions that you are making are impacting far more people than you realize, and that the decisions that you're making are also affecting voters who will remember this when it comes around to election season.
Smith's advice to home buyers is to stay the course, lean on people who have gone through this before, and have all of your paperwork in order when the government does reopen. In New York, I'm Lee Waldman.
All right, so now let's take a look at the local impact. Here in Indiana, we learned that the shutdown means SNAP benefits will be on hold starting next month.
Yeah. SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, more commonly known as food stamps. In a letter to all the states, the USDA said there was not enough money to send out November's payments.
That, of course, as you can imagine, is a serious concern for Hoosiers who rely on SNAP to feed their families. Our Logan Gay looked into this. She spoke with one woman, a single mom with a medical condition, who says she feels like collateral damage.
Samantha Bandy is focusing on making ends meet for her and her children after finding out her SNAP benefits might be paused until further notice because of the federal government shutdown.
Realize that most of it is out of my control.
She's one of the many people balancing a job and raising kids who still can't make ends meet. She says SNAP benefits are a lifeline for them.
It's provided a lot of relief with being able to get my kids healthy meals, get myself healthy meals.
She says this couldn't have happened at a worse time. Her rent just went up. She's recovering from a surgery and is preparing to start physical therapy, which will cut into her working hours at her job.
It's not a fun thing to need food stamps. Being in poverty and all that, it's not something that, at least not me, that I want to be in. And programs like this have just had a huge impact and help for me.
And her kids, who she's trying to shield from these troubles.
I don't want them to be uncomfortable or hungry or worried about anything.
Right now, she says she has 2 weeks of food left and 1 week of SNAP funds before she runs out. She says after that, if the funds aren't there, she plans to wing it and go to as many food banks as possible.
That's really stressful, especially because most of them are open during the day when I'm at work, and I don't want to take off work, then miss out on money from work.
But until then, she's dealing with the uncertainty by focusing on stretching her meals.
I think I got one more day left on it. You could make a baked potato and put to make it enough for, yeah, that's probably what I'm going to do tomorrow.
That was our Logan Gay reporting.
Earlier this week, Logan spoke with Emily Bryan with Feeding Indiana's Hungry. Bryan said Indiana's payments of its benefits are on the 5th of the month, which gives Hoosiers a little more time than in other states.
All right, to be continued.
Right.
We'll continue to follow it. Still ahead here on Crossroads, do data centers make good neighbors? This year we've been seeing big protests fighting to keep data centers out of Hoosier communities. Coming up, what lawmakers could do about it. But first.
People in downstate Illinois are desperate to get away from Chicago.
So should those people come to Indiana? The first meeting of a commission looking to take in some conservative Illinois counties. Next on Crossroads Politics. Welcome back. As leaders in the State House debated redrawing the congressional maps for the state, a different group was meeting to discuss redrawing the map entirely.
That's right. This legislative session, the Indiana-Illinois Boundary Commission was created to look into possibly absorbing some counties from Illinois into Indiana. 33 Illinois counties have already held non-binding referenda to basically be in a state that Chicago is not. They want to be away from the city of Chicago.
Right. Our Jenna Webster breaks down the commission's first meeting this week.
So the next thing on the agenda.
6 Hoosiers now make up the Indiana-Illinois Boundary Adjustment Commission. 5 seats are still available for Illinois if the legislature passes a bill to join. The question at hand, should Illinois counties be able to join Indiana?
That's our discussion.
For southern and central Illinois, the advantage is the lower taxes and the lower regulations so their economy can heal.
The commission heard testimony from 4 people, including the Illinois Separation Referendum Group. 33 counties, shown in yellow, want to leave the state.
People in downstate Illinois are desperate to get away from Chicago.
Eric Ivers is from Illinois. That's what it comes down to. Illinois Republicans say they're tired of the state's Democratic politics.
It's the same Illinois districts if they were in Indiana, but elected the same Republican legislators. So it would change almost nothing in terms of the congressional makeup.
Commissioners questioned what a change could mean for schools, financial implications, and a state whose boundaries don't even touch.
I assume there'd be an effort to try to make it some type of logical design of which counties go where. So it would be impossible to have counties scattered.
Our governor accuses us of wanting to kick Chicago out of Illinois. That is not so. We want to kick ourselves out of Illinois.
G.H. Merritt is part of the New Illinois group. She says 70 counties have committees to leave the state.
Unless Indiana is willing to take every county except for Cook County, we wouldn't be in favor of it.
Merritt asking the commissioners to reject the boundary change, saying they'd rather form their own state.
It's got to work for everybody.
But what the commissioners plan to recommend remains to be seen.
Not that I know of, they're not.
That was our Jenna Webster reporting. It's important to note here, it is very unlikely these counties will join Indiana.
Even if the commission recommended it, the proposal would still have to pass through the Indiana State House, the Illinois State House, and then it would have to go through the U.S. Congress.
Right. Still ahead, will the fight over data centers head to the State House? I speak with a lawmaker who believes legislation is needed. Next on Crossroads Politics. Welcome back. AI data centers are a hot topic these days. By some estimates, they're half of all economic growth in the country. But not everyone is happy about them. In fact, across Indiana, communities have begun protesting to keep data centers out of their neighborhoods. Now lawmakers are considering action. Joining me now in studio, Democratic State Representative Robin Shackelford, who represents part of Indianapolis. She has spoken out publicly against a data center project currently being proposed for the Martindale-Brightwood neighborhood in her district, and Shauna Majors, the executive director of the Brightwood Community Center. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. A question for both of you. What do you think are the issues and concerns with this project in particular, and then data centers overall, because we've heard them coming to other neighborhoods as well, or proposals for that?
So I think one of the biggest concerns is how they're going to drive up energy costs and how we're not going to see that many jobs coming into play. Right now, when you're talking about residents, we are facing high electric costs, high electric water costs. So they don't want to see a $1 billion business come in that's going to further drive up those costs.
Shauna, what are you hearing from folks who live in the neighborhood? What are they saying to you?
That's absolutely correct. Environment is a big concern, as well as the lack of jobs that our community could take advantage of, as well as just the overall aesthetic of it, right? We already have a very industrialized neighborhood from the past, and so just being aware of the environment is so important, and it just doesn't seem that that's important to them.
What do you say, Shauna, to the developers who say this is part of the economic future, they want to come and set up shop where you live?
So I would say that unless data centers become more energy efficient, I don't see that happening. There's so much land elsewhere that people can take advantage of that doesn't involve a neighborhood where people are living and have already been disinvested in over the years. And so we really look for opportunities that come in to increase, to add value to our community.
Representative Shackelford, what are lawmakers considering regarding this issue? Possible legislation, right?
Yes, so we're looking at 3 possible pieces of legislation when we're thinking about data centers. One, we want to make sure that businesses are paying their fair share when it comes to taxes, whether it's the property taxes, energy taxes. We don't want that burden to be pushed onto residents. 2, we want to make sure that there's transparency. A lot of these businesses hide behind NDAs and say they can't release like how much their true energy cost is going to be. So we think it's fair upon all Hoosiers that they know what that cost is going to look like. And then 3, just making sure that these companies are using renewable energy, making sure they're being efficient as possible.
Do you expect bipartisan cooperation on some of this action? What do you think?
I always expect bipartisan cooperation. I don't think this is a Democrat issue. I don't think this is a Republican issue. I think we're seeing this in all different parts of the states, and I think a lot of neighborhoods are being affected. So I think we will see that bipartisan work.
And I know we saw a lot of folks from Martindale, Brightwood take to the streets, right?
Yes.
Basically saying we don't want this here. Do you expect to see more public outcry like that?
I do. As we author this legislation and we go into session, I do expect to see those same residents coming down to the State House during session, actually protesting and letting legislators know that they want to be heard. They want to have a decision when a business is coming into their neighborhoods, especially data centers.
Okay, well, we'll certainly be covering it. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. You can watch our ongoing coverage of the data center controversy on demand right here on WTHR+. Ladies, again, thank you for talking and bringing some light to this issue from where you stand. We appreciate it. That does it for this week's episode of Crossroads Politics here on WTHR+. For Dustin Grove, Logan Gay, and Jenna Webster, I'm Emily Longnecker. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you next time.